Many, if not most, or all of our chronic health issues come from the following. Our environments have radically changed. Meanwhile, our bodies have not. What does that mean? For most of human history, modern humans have lived a particular way. Then, all of a sudden, radically, everything changed. Okay, so what do you do with this information? Look to the past. Oftentimes, if you live more like the ways we evolved to live, you'll solve a lot of your health problems. This includes nutrition, activity, sleep, and more. Again, it's not 100%, but it's pretty damn close. Live the way humans lived for thousands and thousands of years, or at least look for the answers there, and you'll probably find them.
Not to counter that great message, but do you think that, what we're experiencing in the last, I'd say, 30 years or so, like Moore's Law and like how fast everything is evolving and changing, that we as a species will actually speed up our ability to adapt to the changing environment and the changing things that we throw at it? Like, part of why we are riddled with chronic disease right now, part of why there's an obesity epidemic is because we introduced these processed foods not that long ago and overconsume like crazy, and we haven't given our bodies enough time to adapt to this bullshit. Do you think there's light at the end of the tunnel, or an optimistic view of our body's resiliency and ability to adapt?
Not from an evolutionary standpoint, because we also have simultaneously figured out how to keep ourselves alive, not healthy, but alive, long enough to procreate. So the way it would have worked in the past was something changed in the environment. Let's say we live in a tribe and all of a sudden we have to migrate to a place that's cloudy. Well, all the darker skinned people are probably not going to be able to survive or procreate, because darker skinned people take a lot more sunlight to produce the same vitamin D. So what's left over are people with very light skin. But that means that the people who didn't fit the new environment didn't procreate and died. Now, we do a very good job of keeping people alive. So the evolutionary pressures are not the same. Also, the environment's changing so radically and so quickly, I don't think we can evolve that quickly. I think what's probably, and look, I'm also not making the argument that we should live in caves and do all that, because I know that that's the argument that people will make, like, oh, okay, well, I guess we should live in caves and throw rocks. No. But there's a lot of answers there. For example, you're probably better off eating a diet that is more like the way that we evolved eating. You're probably better off sleeping in the same ways we slept back, thousands of years ago, where we went down when the sun went down, we came up when the sun went up. We weren't constantly under electric lights. Activity, social, connection, all that stuff. And that's what we're discovering. It's like we've modified our environment so much, it doesn't match our bodies and our brains and our psyche. And so we have all these chronic health issues that just, we're now starting to realize, this is because we're living in ways that our bodies didn't evolve, or maybe were designed to live.
Yeah, well, we used to have to rely on genes mutating, and then that would require a lot of the population to die off, and then this new generation to pass on these new genes, and said and so forth. But yeah, we've done a better job of keeping like almost everybody alive in terms of like interventions and healthcare. But I think the only way like the adaptation process might play a different factor in the future is when they get even crazier with this gene editing and all that kind of stuff. But obviously, for what we can control, to the message, what we've learned from all of these generations preceding us, that's the stuff that's held the most amount of time in terms of like best practices to keep us healthy for thousands of years. So why not pay attention to that?
Okay. So then the next question is then, okay, if this is true, and I agree with you that our bodies probably will not be able to adapt to the changing environment we are now, does the continued rise in all the chronic issues that we have in our society, is it enough? And at what point is it enough to push us in the direction of realizing like, maybe we will cut out some of these electronics. Maybe we will stop eating a lot of these processed foods. Maybe we will challenge our body in hot and cold temperatures and not try and regulate the temperature perfectly all the time. Maybe we will choose to walk instead of riding around on these scooters. Like, do we do that? And do as a whole society? Because obviously there's subsets of small groups of people that live that way or think this way, right? And Amish would be an example of that. Do we all start to move that way? Do we start to reject some of the, technological things that continue to move forward, according to Moore's law, or do we continue to adopt it until it just destroys us?
I don't know about reject, but we probably will direct them differently. Like there's lots of evidence that shows that as societies become more modern and we meet our basic needs, like food, shelter, water, and we become more wealthy, then we start to focus on problems that are more distant from us. So it's like nobody cares about the ozone layer when I don't have food to feed. So I'm just going to burn charcoal and dung, and I'm going to do whatever I can to provide food for myself and my family. But past a certain point, when all these basic needs are met, then we start to look at other things and say, okay, well, we should probably worry about the ozone layer. We should probably worry about these other things. And then there are some success stories like leaded gasoline, right? We figured out that was bad for us, and we took out the lead out of gas. And cigarettes. It's another.
I was
big
going to
one.
bring up cigarettes. Yeah, we've learned a lot from just seeing how that circulated through the population and how we've had to kind of manage and regulate.
Yeah. Meanwhile, do you know how many people still smoke cigarettes?
Oh, a lot.
Yeah, there's. But
like
they're educated and they know the risk.
Still a smaller percentage of the population, at least in like America, for example, it's declined.
Just America, but we're talking about the world though right now. Give me the numbers on that, Doug. I actually saw. I watched.
In China, I think like 1 out of every 3 or 2.
Bro, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's actually considering what we know. That's why I find this an interesting conversation and discussion, is because even as much as we know about that, like it's like one of the single things that you could either
it's the highest factor for any kind of like disease or cancer.
Give me the stats, Doug.
If you're a smoker.
Well, China wasn't not that long ago was very poor. They literally just came out of extreme poverty. So I would predict if they were able to continue, becoming wealthier, which people argue, that things like cigarette smoking will start to decline. What does that say, Doug?
Okay, so there's some countries, I don't even know how to pronounce them, and I'm not familiar with them. They're up in around the 50% range. Myanmar is the first country I recognize at 45.5%.
Half the people smoke?
Half the people smoke. And in that case, the rate of male smoking is a little bit higher than females.
Right, risky.
France actually is way up there at 34.6%. Male, female, almost the same. I'm seeing big countries that we,
I
mentioned
US
China, which I find interesting. Like, for example, another big country would be United States, 25%.
You know why I don't like the U.S. as an example, Sal, even though you're going to go there, is because these are things that we can measure because they're not measuring the black market. And I bet you there's still a massive black market because of the amount of taxation and regulation that's been put around cigarettes. That always drives a black market. So for whatever percentage we went down in smoking as Americans, say like in the last, decade or two, I would argue that the black market also significantly increased in that.
It did, but people smoke way less, dude.
I agree. I agree because you could go places. I remember as a kid compared to right now.
Bro,
right? So
everywhere.
I don't need stats to see that. So I'm not. I'm not saying that it's the same or more. I'm saying
and it's also like I remember in Italy when I was a kid. I was 12 and I went there. And everybody was smoking. At the dinner table, people were smoking. My cousins got delivered.
They used to allow you to smoke on the plane.
Dude.
It's so crazy.
My cousin got delivered. My cousin had a baby. This is years ago, right? A long time ago, right? I don't know, 40 years ago. She had a baby in a hospital in Sicily, and the doctor put his cigarette down to get the baby as he was coming out.
So, I mean, check this out, though. Times. I also would be curious to see these stats. I just watched that documentary on Juul.
Oh, right? You did? Did you like it?
Yeah. It was good. It was just interesting because I didn't know about the whole trajectory in their story. I mean, the amount of millions and millions of people that were using vapes and e-cigs. So, okay, cigarette smoking declined, but then vaping came out. There wasn't even anybody who was vaping just 20 years ago.
Yeah, well,
So it'd be interesting to see, like,
they advertised it as like a better alternative. Nicotine's obviously
it ended up being worse. It ended up being worse.
Yeah, I know.
Because the nicotine hit. It's the story is really interesting how it all played out too.
But I mean, so I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna get better or if we're just gonna get a lot worse. I don't know.
It's almost like it's so sad to say this, but it's almost like we're so dumb of a species that a bunch of us really have to die off
before we figure it out.
Before we really wait. Like it almost has to become this like crazy fear, where it's like, oh my God, you're watching people die left and right in front of you.
But again,
smoking Ebola or something.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, but again, I don't want to. Obviously, modern technology is amazing. I mean, the plague in Europe killed 1/3.
Yeah.
Okay. Of the whole population.
Yeah.
Imagine that right now. Yeah. 1 out of every 3 people dead from the plague. Now, if something like that happened now, we have medicines and drugs that will, handle it. That was a bacterial infection. But generally speaking, right? So I'm not an extremist in that sense. I know there's people who are like, you should wear animal furs that you kill yourself and have no electricity. I'm not saying that. I could see some of the value of that argument, but I think that's not just unrealistic, but I think modern life also has some good things. So I'm not saying any of that, but I think there's a lot of, it's a really good compass. It really is. Like you want to look at diet, right? If you're looking at diet, you don't know what to eat. There's all these diet books that are out there and all these different ways of eating. It's like, if you eat foods that are whole natural, you're 90% of the way there. Like foods that don't require.
Right. Choose a food that you could have chose 80 years ago.
Yeah.
There's a simple way.
Yeah.
Right. You can only eat foods that we had.
That existed 100 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's a real easy way.
Right. And even if you look at the foods that did exist 100 years ago, like let's look at beef, for example. Okay. So cows, they didn't eat grain. That's not a natural type of food for cows. Cows ate grass. That's what they naturally eat.
It was later when we industrialized it and we realized if we pump them full of grain that we could get so much more money per pound.
That's right. Yeah. And they make them fatter, they gain weight faster. Yep. But if you compare grass-fed beef to grain-fed beef, now people make the argument, the differences aren't that big. Well, yeah, with one meal, but if you eat beef, 3 times a week or every day like I do, makes a difference. Do that over the course of 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years. The difference in fatty acids, the difference in nutrients, they make a difference. Yeah. The fatty acid profile alone, grass-fed meat is not as inflammatory as grain-fed meat. Mm-hmm. I feel a huge difference. When we first started working with ButcherBox, so ButcherBox was the first time I had consistent grass-fed meat. Before that, I'd go to the grocery store. Mm-hmm. I'd have to kind of search it out, and it wasn't consistent. Now, I'd say 80% of the beef that I eat is ButcherBox, so it's grass-fed.
Yeah.
I feel a difference when I go on vacation or go somewhere and I don't eat grass-fed. I do feel more inflamed.
Well, especially going through this kind of protocol like Dr. Cabral's got me on. It's like everything I'm doing right now is to try to kind of reduce quite a bit of this inflammation internally. I totally feel that having any kind of different type of a steak if I'm out to eat. And I have had a few when I've gone out to restaurants and I'm like, ooh, it's just one of those things. You just feel a little bit of that maybe lethargic kind of feeling. Like it's hard to describe, but it's very like distinctive.
Yeah, you guys ever eat like game meat?
Yeah.
Like deer or,
yeah.
It's like it almost like energizes you.
Yeah, dude. And it tastes different.
Yeah.
It's got a different flavor.
Speaking of ButcherBox, have any of you guys done the skillet yet? Have you guys got it yet?
I've done it.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah.
So explain this to me again.
Bro,
it comes all like what
it's already like potato, chicken, vegetables, right? It's like I think
it's mainly potatoes and chicken.
And I think bell peppers or onions are in there too or something like that.
And then they have some type of spices, kind of got a Southwest flavor, if you will.
Yeah, it's already seasoned up. I don't know how you made it. I throw it in an iron skillet and then crack 2 or 3 eggs on it and make burritos out of it. And it's
that sounds bomb.
Oh, that's a
breakfast burritos at high protein because you got the chicken, you got the potatoes, and then you have the egg in there, and it's already and it's quick.
That's a great
and
idea.
It's bomb.
You probably could also throw that on rice.
Oh yeah, you could make it a dinner, so you could turn it into like a a rice chicken type of stir fry bowl or whatever, and it's that easy that all you have to do is cook the rice, throw it over there. Or I really enjoy it for breakfast.
Speaking of rice and chicken, like every time Justin eats now, because you're on the protocol, it's so funny. I feel so bad.
You guys fuck with me every chance.
Every time, well, because every time he eats now,
Yeah, no,
he eats what I eat now because he can't eat. So
I've
many things.
encouraged it like everywhere I go, like, and I just like accept it. It's like I told you, my kids, and like it's just funny to me. I laugh because it's like I look at it and I'm just like, oh yeah, that looks very familiar.
Yeah,
The very same meal I had yesterday.
What's your protocol? So are you taking antimicrobial herbs?
Yep, antimicrobial herbs, and then
Avoiding the food intolerances.
better reintroducing better bacteria, and doing the whole SIBO protocol. So it's like, I mean, how many pills is that? Like, so there's a good almost 10 to 12 pills in that regimen, and then you got to do like 6 before meal. Like breakfast, and then you do 6 kind of like for dinner, and then you do all of the 12 pills or something before night.
Are you experiencing any die off? Do you know what that is?
So is that like a feeling of like
so when you have when you're killing off the bad bacteria, because that's your antimicrobials do that, right? They kill the bacteria.
You get a little bloaty and
you can get
whatnot.
skin. Yes, dude.
I'm just trying to describe what's happening to me.
Rushing. You blasted me earlier today, so I'm like, just
Bro, I'm like
TMI.
I get a lot of the jokes like before, but I wasn't like Captain Gas over here all the time. But man, it's like going through this. There's some cleansing happening, dude.
That's what I was gonna say. So
Yeah.
you get die off. Some people will feel irritable, headaches. They'll get skin issues. It's called the Hertzheimer effect, I think.
Yeah.
Are you getting any of that, or is it just like kind of like
I've kind of moving past it a bit.
You noticed that at first?
Yeah, but I did notice that. Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
So Aurelius, we did a protocol on him. Now we know why, by the way, his body was reacting because there was
the
mold.
mold?
Yeah. But we did a protocol on him where we had, because of the mold, his gut wasn't able to balance itself well. And so he had developed SIBO. We did test it and all that. So we did an SIBO protocol. And it made him so irritable. He was just not himself.
Wow.
And it was the die-off that was happening. Because his toxins...
That's wild.
That's great. That's like ammo for me, dude.
Oh,
like,
really?
Oh, dude. Yeah. Poor Courtney. She's been like, you are so angry these days. Like, I can't have cheese. I can't have literally, I can't even have like tomato. So you think of like sauces and like things I would normally have with that. Like, and I forgot that there's so many of them. Like, oh yeah, I guess I shouldn't be eating that. Like eggs too. And I was like, oh, whoops. Like literally, that's why you see just chicken and rice now, because it's just like
Easy.
That's how I.
That's how
I'm not gonna mess that up.